was individual outlier plots. So a little bit of context here. This is a kind of a QI tool that we're thinking of or planning to implement for the collaborative. So as we just talked about and just looked at, we've seen really some huge, fantastic gains from all of our sites, but still probably pretty significant room for improvement, even for the sites that are maintaining their gains. But one of the big focuses that we had in 2020 through Megan's work, you've probably got the materials in the mail from Christy, get a lot of emails from us, is this more system level, get you pocket cards, get you PowerPoints that you can use to teach at a faculty meeting, get you system level tools to help understand our quality initiatives and hopefully implement some of the improvements that we think are helpful for you. And so some of the questions we've got is, we've heard from the coordinating center is, well, what else can we do to help our improvement get better? And one of the things that we've seen from looking at the data is that there is often really big variation provider to provider within a site. From head injury, you'd see, 20%, someone at 20%, someone at 90%. So kind of looking at those outliers and seeing where there's opportunity to both improve the person who's performing poorly and learn from the person who's performing well, we feel like could be a really good next step in improving some of the performance for your system. So the tool that we kind of came up with here with help from from Christian Seiler is our outlier plots. So just a little context of that. We lost our statistician in the Medic Coordinating Center last spring. Had trouble finding somebody to take the job full time, and we've entered into a really great partnership with the Data and Methods Hub from the Institute of Healthcare Policy and Innovation at the University of Michigan to get 40% of time from a statistician, Christian Seiler, who's done a great job of helping us on this work. So here it is. Here's your individual outlier plot. We can give you this and you can look and say how to improve, but obviously we'll take a little time and walk you through what this is. So what you're looking at here is a plot on the x-axis where it shows the number of patients that you've seen. So again, when we hear a little bit about volumes and how do you adjust for that, this is where this will come in. So on your x-axis, the number of patients you've seen. On the y-axis is your performance score. So everything that we are grading on, either whether it's utilization, appropriateness, diagnostic yield, you're getting a percentage on that. So 0 through 1 is your score there. The gray horizontal line here is going to be your target. So in this example, I'm showing you the pediatric minor head injury intermediate risk CT utilization. So the target for us here is less than 18%. So we put a line at 18%, and then using a normal distribution, we can add in a 95% confidence interval to say, okay, we know that if you see 2 patients, you can get a 0, a 50, or 100. Those are the only possibilities. And maybe that's not meaningful for quality improvement on an individual level. So what this is looking at is how reliable is your score based relative to the amount of patients that you're actually seeing. And then each little plus sign here is an individual physician. So this data is blended from multiple sites over multiple years. It's real data based off of our actual performance because we wanted it to actually make sense around the distribution, but this is not any one particular site or particular year's data. So there's essentially you can't trace this back to anyone. It's a mix of data. So how do you use this data? Looking at the display we've got here, we kind of shaded in a green, yellow, and red section. So the green section, again, less than 18% is the goal for performance here. So if you're in the green, you're doing well. You're beating the performance regardless of your sample size. If you're in the yellow there, that's where it gets a little interesting. So your performance number is worse than the target. So it's less than 18%. So you're somewhere above that, but you haven't done enough cases that, maybe that might just be chance or pretty much chance. If you're in the red, however, then your performance is statistically different than the target. And sample size doesn't account for that. So you're doing significantly more in this example, CTs for pediatric head injury than the target and from your peers. So what we want to do kind of going forward, so we kind of pull out the rest of it and let's just look at the performers who are in the red section here. So you see there's a clump of them pretty close to the confidence interval. So they're doing worse than the target. It's not adjusted by sample size, but they're not huge outliers. But one thing you might want to look at if this were your data as a clinical champion or an abstract or an administrator is what's going on with these 2 people. There's a ton of context to everything, and we definitely recognize that. And there may be good reasons that people are performing differently, but like I said, statistically, these are significant outliers. And if you can pull those two down, closer to the confidence interval or even better below the target, you might make a huge difference on your actual site level score. So that's the idea here. So another one to look at is adult minor head injury, CT appropriateness. So again, same situation, blended data from blended sites, blended years, and you can see huge distribution here. So again, someone is down at 20%, someone's up at 90%, and it kind of tapers down as you get longer out in the case count, but not completely. So big distribution here. So again, in this situation, above the line is better. So greater than 55% is the target. So the people that are higher on the list are performing better. So add those colors in again, same situation. Above the green, doing better than the target. Yellow, worse than the target, but maybe it's explainable through sample size. Red, those are areas with people that are individuals who are not performing at the target. So a couple of things to point out with these would be, don't look here. So this, if you've got in a kind of a traditional raw way, if you were to just sort all of your providers' performance, you'd have a couple of people up at the top at 100%, a couple of people down at the bottom at 0%. You might want to say, hey, let's go talk to them, see why they're doing really bad. Let's talk to them, see why they're doing really good. They're not doing enough cases that's almost definitely pure chance. So that's not an area for improvement, and it's probably not an area for learning. But kind of the flip of what we talked about with looking at the people who are doing poorly, maybe you want to look at this person who's above, doing a lot of cases, over 30 cases. They're significantly above the target and statistically different from the mean in a positive way. Maybe we could talk to them and figure out what are their best practices, what's going well for them, and what can we learn from them. So that's kind of the basic idea of these plots. And we want to think of this as another QI tool. We're always striving to do better on these, and we want to provide you with whatever tools that we have. Again, context, culture, everything matters. Every department is different. Every individual is different, obviously. So we understand that this is not a blunt instrument that you can just push through and get results on, but it is something that we hope is helpful. And again, the idea with this is identify the individual outliers. Who's doing significantly better or worse than your target? And what can we do to help them do better, or what can we learn from them? And, how can they inspire us to help the rest of the team? So the question, the takeaway is, how do we implement this in Medic? And the answer to that is we're not really sure. We know this is a tool that makes sense, but we also know that the implementation framework and tools that everyone has in their own hospitals are different. And, we don't want to just hand you this piece of paper and say, good luck, go implement this and see what you can do better. So what we want to do is get a couple sites, 3-5 sites, to volunteer to help us figure this out. So we'll send out an email. And actually you can just email us, email Megan actually, to volunteer to be a pilot site for this. And the ask for that and the requirement would be commit to, ideally your abstract or your clinical champion and any QI folks in your site, sit down with us through Zoom probably, for an hour and a half to really look at your data, talk to us about the culture and the context of your QI framework within your department, and help us figure out what the best way to use these tools are. Because we're excited. We feel like this is a kind of a next step to move away from looking at what we don't want individuals to do is look at every single case, find the one reason that they kind of disagree with a data point and say, well, I'm not going to pay attention to this. I'm doing it right. There's no problem. We want to be able to bring a bigger context, look at the data over time and say, yeah, maybe that's true on that case, but statistically your performance is different than everybody else's, and let's see what we can do about that. So again, looking for a couple volunteer sites that are willing to engage with us. We'll give you your data, talk through how it would work for you and what we can do to improve. So email Megan, email me. We would be happy to, excited to be more accurate, to work with you to try to figure out how we can use this as a tool to make the next steps of improvement. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Megan, and she is going to talk to you about QI roundtables. Thanks.